Wife makes sign about husband, but she wasn't prepared to hear what people really thought of him. She was distraught. The pain of losing a loved one was too unbearable. She didn't know what to do, and she missed him every day increasingly. In her heart, she knew she had to keep the memory of him alive. So she thought of something to commemorate him. She put out a sign telling people her husband had passed away. But what she didn't expect were people's unexpected reactions to it.
Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
Velvet and Charlie Poveromo were deeply in love. They'd been married for over 4 decades, until one sad day, Charlie passed away due to a sudden heart attack. She couldn't bear life without him. He'd been her rock for years, and now she found herself completely alone. She had to do something. She had to keep his memory alive somehow, but what she couldn't have expected was how this was going to affect her future in so many ways. Her husband, Charlie, was a loved resident of the community, a much-loved barkeep at a local restaurant called Grissini. He'd worked in the establishment for over 20 years and had won over the hearts of everyone in New Milford, Connecticut, where the couple lived. But Velvet knew without him, her life didn't have much meaning, until one day she knew exactly what she had to do. Charlie was a devoted employee and husband. He had specific clients that would call ahead to find out if he was working that night, and if he wasn't, these customers wouldn't go to the restaurant. He'd perform odd jobs around the restaurant, helping anyone that needed an extra hand, and even would work on his days off. As a husband, he was incredible too. "My Charlie loved me," she told TV station ABC 11. "He loved other people." Velvet was so incredibly proud of her husband, but never knew how his actions had really affected their community. One day, Charlie went to work as he usually did. It was a hectic night, and he stayed overtime at Grissini Ristorante to make sure everyone had been served. He didn't come home that night, and then Velvet got the call. She heard the words on the other end of the line, and they devastated her. He'd only been 57 years old, the love of her life. How could something like this have happened? Velvet not only had to say goodbye, but she had to learn how to live without Charlie. That's when she decided that she had to do something about it. She was trying to fill the void, the emptiness that was left behind in her heart when he had gone. Charlie had suffered a devastating heart attack, and his sudden end of life shocked many people and left the whole community grieving his loss. Little did they know, Velvet had a plan to ensure that his memory was kept alive. Tony Delgado, the owner of the restaurant where Charlie worked, was shattered by the loss of his friend and longtime employee. "He was one of the finest gentlemen I'd ever met," Delgado said in an interview. "Everybody felt like an individual to him. He spoke directly to people. His eyes never wandered. There could be 20 or 30 people at the bar, but when a person spoke to him, they were the most important person in the room." In 2010, New Milford, Connecticut was in a scorching heat wave. The heat was surpassing the 100-degree mark for more than 4 days. Even worse, there was another problem. Due to the heat wave, the region had encountered a drought. One day, Charlie noticed something that unnerved him deeply. He then decided he needed to do something to help. But now, 8 years later, another intense heat wave was peeking its way over. This made Velvet remember Charlie's act of charity. From then on, Charlie began providing cool beverages for all public workers. This act of kindness made him very well known in the community. Everyone knew that if they needed something to cool them down, his cooler was always going to be there. Until it wasn't. Velvet needed to keep his memory alive. She knew how vital this cooler was to Charlie, so she decided to do just that, never expecting the massive movement she'd just created. She put out a cooler full of beverages and snacks with a sign informing everyone about Charlie's death. She wanted to continue her late husband's tradition, but when she started getting reactions from people who saw her sign, she finally learned what people really thought of her Charlie. Velvet and her friends shared this incredible deed on social media and began a vast movement that made the summer heat a little bit more bearable. "I wanted to pay tribute to him and honor him because he gave back so much to this community, and I want to give back to him," she said. "He's my heart," Velvet says to CBS. The impact of what she did showed immediately. The garbage truck rolled in, making its usual rounds, and knew that they could find cool beverages and snacks at the Poveromo house. But when they read the sign, they all got out of the truck and stood in a straight line. They then proceeded to salute Velvet, approach her to shake her hand, offer their condolences, and thank her for her kindness. Moved by the actions of Velvet, her sister-in-law, Monica, decided to put out a cooler herself to commemorate the memory and good deed of Charlie. "It's given us a reason to smile, and it's such a great way to honor Charlie and keep his memory alive," she revealed to ABC 11, adding, It's been tough since we lost him, and this gives me a reason to smile because he was a great guy." This incredibly moved everyone. Hashtag Charlie's Cooler has been implemented in at least 13 states and has reached countries as far as Japan. Even though Velvet didn't seek donations for her act of kindness, she did receive various anonymous contributions, which she incredibly gratefully for and uses to restock her cooler, continuing her husband's legacy. By doing so, Velvet's life has another purpose. "It's taken on a life of its own," she said. "Every person who does it, it's a tribute to him," Velvet says about the movement in an online interview. She also states how this has helped her heal and feel close to her husband by having done so. Months after the movement began, she needed something to mend her heart just a little bit more. She posts the incredible moment when she finds her new lovable cat, Charlie, on her Facebook. It seems her late husband, Charlie, is looking out for her more than she'll ever know.